Tonight, before you go to bed, you'll probably do something so ordinary that you'll barely notice it. You'll reach for a light switch. With a single click, the room will fill with light. The darkness will disappear instantly. It feels completely normal. But for almost every human who has ever lived, that moment never existed. For more than 300,000 years, when the sun disappeared, the world disappeared with it. There were no street lights, no glowing windows, no bedside lamps, no phones lighting up the room at midnight. Once daylight was gone, darkness took over completely. Beyond the reach of a fire, you couldn't even see your own hand in front of your face. Modern humans almost never experience true darkness. Your ancestors lived inside it every single night. For thousands of generations, every person in your family tree spent nearly half of every day in a world lit only by the stars, the moon, and whatever fire they could keep alive. Which raises a surprisingly simple question. What did humans actually do all night? The answer is far more interesting than simply they slept. Because the night wasn't empty. It became one of the most important parts of being human. To understand why, we have to begin with one of the greatest turning points in our evolutionary history: fire. The oldest convincing evidence that humans controlled fire comes from Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, dating back roughly 1 million years. People often think fire changed history because it provided warmth or made cooking possible. It certainly did both, but its most profound effect was something much less obvious. Fire changed time. Before humans mastered fire, their daily rhythm looked much like that of every other primate. As daylight faded, activity stopped. Finding shelter became the priority. The safest place was wherever predators were least likely to find you. Moving through the darkness was dangerous. Our ancestors were never built for the night. Compared with nocturnal predators, human vision is remarkably poor after sunset. Leopards, hyenas, wolves, they hunted when darkness gave them the advantage. Humans did not. Then everything changed. A single campfire created something evolution had never offered before: a small island of safety surrounded by an ocean of darkness. Within that circle of light, predators hesitated. Outside it, the risks remained exactly the same. Anthropologists studying modern hunter-gatherer societies have repeatedly documented that people who leave the safety of the fire after dark face dramatically greater danger from predators. Even today, the fire didn't eliminate the darkness. It simply pushed it back a few meters. But those few meters changed human history, because fire gave our ancestors something no previous generation had ever possessed: more waking time. Instead of ending the day at sunset, people suddenly had 2, sometimes 4 additional hours before sleep. At first glance, that doesn't sound revolutionary, but imagine gaining several extra hours every single evening, generation after generation, for hundreds of thousands of years. Those hours accumulated, and eventually they transformed our species. The question is, what did humans do with that new time? For decades, scientists searched for the answer. In 2014, anthropologist Polly Wiessner published a landmark study in the Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. She spent years recording conversations among the Jew hoansi Bushmen of the Kalahari Desert, one of the last groups on Earth still living something close to the original human lifestyle. What she found stopped researchers cold. During the day, approximately 80% of conversations were practical. Who's hunting where, which plants are ready, complaints, logistics, negotiations. Daytime talk was work, but at night, around the fire, the entire character of conversation changed. 81% of nighttime conversations were stories, tales of distant people, adventures, myths about the origins of the world, jokes that made the whole camp laugh until they couldn't breathe. Think about what that means. The campfire was the original theater, the original classroom, the original church. It's where humans learned to think beyond the immediate present, where we began imagining things that don't exist yet, where abstract thought, narrative, culture, all of it, was born, not in the daylight while working, in the dark while gathered around a fire, telling each other things that had never happened and might never happen and somehow mattered anyway. But the night wasn't only about stories. Something else was happening, something scientists only rediscovered in the last 30 years, something buried so completely under centuries of artificial light that we forgot it had ever existed. You were not designed to sleep the way you sleep right now. In 2001, historian Roger Ekirch published a paper that changed sleep science permanently. He had spent 16 years searching through historical records, prayer books from the 1400s, court documents, diaries, medical texts, letters from ordinary people, passages in Homer's Odyssey. What he found across more than 500 references, spanning centuries, was the same thing: first sleep and second sleep. Before the industrial age, people did not sleep in one continuous block. They went to bed shortly after sunset, slept for approximately 4 hours, then woke up naturally. They stayed awake for 1 to 2 hours in the middle of the night, then slept again until dawn. This wasn't insomnia. This was normal. This was how every human on the planet slept for thousands of years. And what did people do during that wakeful middle period? A 16th century French physician recommended that couples conceive children during this window. He believed they would do it better. People visited neighbors. They interpreted their dreams while still fresh. They wrote. They lay in the dark and thought. A doctor's manual from the 1500s specifically advised patients that the best time to study and reflect was during the watch, the quiet hours between first and second sleep, when the mind was calm and the world was still. Historians had been reading these references for centuries. They kept mistranslating them because they couldn't imagine that people had ever slept differently than we do now. The assumption was so deep it rewrote the historical record. Translators literally changed ancient Greek and medieval Latin to fit their modern experience of sleep. The evidence was there. Nobody could see it because you can only find what you're looking for. Then science confirmed what history had been saying all along. In 1992, psychiatrist Thomas Wehr at the National Institute of Mental Health ran an experiment. He removed all artificial light from a group of volunteers. For 1 month, they experienced 14 hours of darkness every night, exactly as your ancestors would have before electricity extended the evening indefinitely. Within weeks, without instruction, without suggestion, every single participant settled into the same pattern: 4 hours of sleep, 1 to 3 hours of quiet wakefulness, then 4 more hours of sleep. Nobody told them to do this. Their bodies just did it, as if an ancient program had been waiting inside them the whole time, buried under centuries of artificial light, patient, intact, ready. Wehr measured their hormone levels during that wakeful period. What he found was remarkable. The participants were in a neurological state unlike any normal waking state. Elevated prolactin, the same hormone released during meditation and after orgasm. They described feeling peaceful, reflective, almost meditative. It wasn't just a gap in sleep. It was its own distinct state of consciousness, one that most modern humans have never experienced, one that may be the single most consistent feature of human nighttime experience across all of recorded history. And then we turned the lights on and it disappeared. In the 1600s, cities began installing street lamps. Paris was among the first, under Louis XIV, who wanted to reduce crime. London followed, then cheaper candles, then gas lamps in the 1800s. Then, in 1879, Thomas Edison commercialized the electric light bulb. And within a generation, the night as humans had known it for 300,000 years was gone. Not transformed, gone. The word curfew comes from the French couvre-feu, cover fire. In medieval towns, a bell would ring at night signaling everyone to extinguish their fires. Not for safety, because night was supposed to be dark, because darkness was when you slept, because being out at night without a lantern was, in many medieval European cities, literally illegal. Night belonged to criminals and the supernatural. People feared it in a way that is almost impossible for us to reconstruct today. And then we conquered it. We flooded it with light, and we thought that was progress. Here is what we lost. Modern humans are exposed to artificial light an average of 7 to 8 hours after sunset. That light, especially the blue light from screens, suppresses melatonin production, the hormone that regulates sleep. Your body cannot distinguish between a light bulb and the sun. When light hits your retina at 11 p.m., your brain interprets it as daytime. It delays melatonin release. It fragments your sleep. It disrupts a circadian rhythm that evolved over millions of years to do something very specific with darkness. Researchers have found that people who go camping for just 1 week with no artificial light at all have their melatonin cycles reset by nearly 2 hours. Their bodies begin producing melatonin at sunset instead of hours after it. That's all it takes, 7 days, for 300,000 years of programming to reassert itself. We didn't just change when we sleep, we eliminated an entire phase of human consciousness. That quiet reflective state between first and second sleep, the state Wehr's subjects described as peaceful and meditative, the state that medieval doctors prescribed for study and reflection. It doesn't exist anymore for most people. Instead, we have insomnia, and we treat it like a disorder. But what if it's not a disorder? What if waking up at 2 a.m. and lying there in the dark isn't your body malfunctioning? What if it's your body remembering what it was built to do? For 300,000 years, your ancestors spent their nights in a rhythm that modern science is only beginning to understand. They gathered around fires and told stories that built civilizations. They slept in 2 phases with a window of quiet reflection between them. They lived in darkness so complete that the Milky Way wasn't something you had to drive somewhere to see. It was just the sky. And every night when they woke in the dark between first and second sleep, they lay in the silence and thought about their lives, their dreams, the world they would wake up to in the morning. No screens, no notifications, no algorithm deciding what came next. Just the dark and their thoughts and the dying fire and the people sleeping near them who would still be there when the sun came back. We traded all of that for a light switch, and most of us never even knew it was gone until 2 a.m. when something wakes us up for no reason, and we lie there staring at the ceiling, wondering why we can't get back to sleep, not knowing that what we're experiencing isn't a malfunction. It's a memory, the oldest one we have.